By the way, wearing this, I kind of feel like how Garth Brooks, I kind of know how he feels now with this. So thanks for the round of applause. I always get nervous, though, when I come and speak in front of a group and they applaud me, because what if I suck? And then you're like, oh, I can't believe I wasted a whole clap on this clown. This guy was awful. JD, I don't know where, I thought JD was in the room. Oh, here he is, he's front and center. I just want to thank JD for inviting me here. I'm so proud to sit on the board for the Years Foundation, which helps support Biz Kidz. It's amazing. So JD reaches out to me and he goes, hey, listen, I'm putting this event together and we're going to talk about how to celebrate failures. And he goes, you're the first one I'm asking. So when JD thought of who has had massive failure and I want to go, I got to go talk to Joe, the home pro. That was it. But JD, not to worry, because my wonderful girlfriend, Melissa, who many of you met at the registration table, I told her, I said, hey, I'm going to go and talk to this. And she goes, oh my God, babe, that's so exciting. What's the topic? I go, it's all about celebrating failures. Oh my God, that's amazing. Which ones are you going to talk about? Okay, so that's good. So there we go. There's our friends with, I guess I don't need any enemies at all. So listen, some of you know me really well, some of you don't know me at all, and others of you are probably going, who's the fat guy on stage and when's Rick Johnson getting here? He's coming, don't worry. So is Dr. K. I think I saw her in the audience, so she's gonna be speaking in a little bit. But listen, I'm gonna give a really just kind of raw, honest account of things that I've gone through in my life and things that have happened to me and how it's propelled me and how I overcame them. I hope that for some of you, maybe you might take a tidbit away from this and be like, wow, that's pretty cool. My life isn't nearly as bad as that guy. He's pretty screwed up. Maybe for others, just be like, you know what? I really something resonated that I said, and that's awesome too. So all of you are now my new friends, because if you know me at all, you'll know that I love to build relationships with people and I love to connect with people. So make sure you find me on social and connect. But this is how I like to build relationships, and I love that we're in this really fun, intimate room. And it's pretty ironic, actually, that we're in this room, because the last time I was in this very room was June 16th of 2020. That was my last day as Director of Sales and Marketing for this hotel. And so I haven't been back here in 2.5 years. By the way, the carpeting you're sitting on and the chandeliers, I helped pick all that out for our new rebranding campaign. I didn't get to really quite see that through. But it's really kind of cool for me to be back here in a place that gave me so much and so many lessons and so many things in my life that I can just really come back here and kind of see some of the fruits of that labor. What's even more ironic is that June 16th of 2000, so 20 years to the day, is when I started my hospitality career. So it's kind of crazy that I always joke, I put in a 20-year sentence, I got out on good behavior. So 20 years in the hospitality business is about 400. Maybe 500. You can tell by all my gray hair and fatness, that's what happens. So people always ask me Joe, what was your childhood like? I'm like, well, it was pretty normal. My dad was a tailor from Belgium, and my mom was a 15-year-old French cook with webbed feet named Chloe. My dad used to tell outrageous stories like he invented the question mark. None of that is true. But I had a bet with somebody that I couldn't work in an Austin Powers line, and I said, watch me work in an Austin Powers line, and I just did. So anyways, he owes me $1, our typical bet. But anyway, we'll get serious for a minute. So I don't know if you heard of a gentleman who, after the Korean War, went to work at KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he helped turn their entire franchises around. This guy did just an amazing thing. He actually created the red bucket that they put the chicken in to this day. He helped design the outside of all their stores and restaurants. And then he got into an argument with the ownership group. And the ownership group really did him wrong. And they really just treated him badly. And he's like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm out. So he goes back to Columbus, Ohio, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to start my own. See, Columbus, Ohio. All right, good. I'm going to start my own restaurant. And he named it after his daughter, Wendy. That was Dave Thomas. Dave Thomas used to work for KFC and was one of their top people. There was these two brothers, and they had this kind of emerging media group. And in 1923, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. And it's a very well-known fact that on multiple times, these two guys were ready to go under. But they fought and they fought and they fought. And 15 years later, in the middle of the Great Depression, these two brothers came out with their very first full feature-length film. You might have heard of it, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It grossed $1.5 million in the middle of the Great Depression. absolutely just a phenomenal feat. In 1955, they opened up Disney, and it was a massive failure. The very first day, the bathrooms don't work, plumbing's broken. There was counterfeit tickets running everywhere because everyone wanted to go and see what the heck this new amusement park was all about. And one of my favorite things about Disneyland when it opened is they hired people to have helicopters that flew low at 6 a.m. because they needed all the wind speed to help dry the paint and the asphalt and everything else. It was an absolute utter disaster. But now, look at Disney. It's one of the most iconic brands of our time and one of the greatest things, at least living in Florida, that we get to go to. Finally, there was a woman, and she's on a train in England, and this idea comes to her, like really, really vividly. But she didn't have a pen to write everything down. So she gets home, and she starts writing furiously about this book idea that she had out of nowhere. She gets home, and next thing you know, life happens. This was in 1990, so a couple years later, her mom passed away. And then about a year or two after that, she went through a really bad divorce. So she's like, I got to move back to where I am in England. She finishes the book in 1997, and she goes around to 12 different publishers, and they all laugh her out of the building. She finally finds one publisher that says, okay, I'll bite. I'm going to give you $4,000. I'm laughing just because I'm like, who gives someone $4,000 for a giant book? She goes, okay, I'll take it. So she gets the $4,000, and 3 years later, she now has 3 novels. She made over $480 million on those. J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter, that's her story. Unbelievable. And there's a ton of others that I want to tell you, like maybe it's Mr. Reese, who got fired from Hershey and sat in his kitchen with his wife and his 2 kids and fought every single day baking and cooking and trying to figure out what is now the iconic Reese's chocolate brand and peanut butter cup, right? Or one of my favorites, here's kind of a local hometown hero, Sarah Blakely. Now, Sarah's got a cool story. Sarah's not that old. She graduated from FSU. She lives up in Clearwater. Sarah was working selling fax machines door to door. If you can remember back that far, how long fax machines are, right? And her company mandated that she had to wear pantyhose. So what could possibly, ladies, right? July, August in Florida wearing pantyhose, going door to door selling. What could possibly go wrong with that? And how could that ever be uncomfortable? So she's at a party and she's telling her friends about this story. And she goes, you know what? This is stupid. So she goes in the bathroom and she cuts off the legs. She goes, oh, this is so much better. The next year, she sold $4 million in what is now the brand called Spanx. The year after that, she sold $10 million in that company, going door to door selling fax machines. And now she has this, one of the most iconic brands you can really think of if you're a female. No judgment, but just saying. So I share all these with you. Oh my gosh, wait, I had to tell you one more. Sorry, I lied. Okay, Colonel Sanders is probably one of my all-time favorite stories. And there's a reason I'm telling you these excerpts. But Colonel Sanders was great. Anyone that knows me knows I love bird. I love chicken. I love turkey. Like, I never met a bird I didn't like. So I am like all in. Like, ask Melissa. On Thanksgiving morning, I fly the turkey around my house before it goes into my oven. Like, it's a really big deal for me. I love the chicken, love the turkey. Colonel Sanders got rejected 1,000 times for his recipe. I'm sorry, that is like the greatest chicken recipe in the history of the earth, okay? So obviously someone does not like chicken because he has an absolutely fantastic story. But in 1963, he sold that company for, at the time, $2 million, which in today's day and age is probably closer to $25 to $30 million. So again, I share these stories, these quick little excerpts, just because these are all people that I've studied. They're all people that I've read up on. They're all people that I knew about. Some of them I didn't know about. My kids are like, Dad, you should really read about this person. Like, they were way more screwed up than you are. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that, young little child. But I read up on it because they all overcame the odds. They were all told they weren't good enough. They were all told that they weren't going to make it. They were all told that you're never going to amount to anything in your life. And I don't know about you, but I've been told that by a lot of people. And here I am, standing up on stage talking to you all about a story that I want to share with you, which is really, I'm really thankful that JD's allowing me to kind of share my story with you. So just really quick, May of 2000, I graduated from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born and raised in Cleveland and then moved to Cincinnati and went to Xavier. Thank you, Karen. Go Browns. Yep, we suck. So everyone's like, oh, are you a Browns? I'm like, yeah. And everyone's trying to get my son to be like a really good sports fan. I'm like, no. He will be miserable like his old man. Let's not try to get him to root for winning teams. So anyway, so I graduate from Xavier. My mom and dad say, listen, Joe, congratulations. We're so proud of you. You have 30 days to find a job. We got to move back to Cleveland. I was like, no problem. Hold my beer. Like, I'm going to find a job. There's no way in holy hell I'm moving back to Cleveland to live with you. I've really been enjoying the last 3 years of my life on my own. So I put on all these events at Xavier. I was part of this committee. Like, we would work with comedians and bands and all this kind of stuff. And it was like really fun. So I really loved the event planning side. And I was a really, really good event planner. So I stumbled into this one hotel and I turned in a resume. And the guy is like, hey, do you have time to talk now? And I was like, yeah, sure. He goes, well, we had a party last night. I got half a keg of beer. You want a beer? And I was like, this is my industry. Like, this is my calling. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is like the greatest day of my life. So I go in and next thing you know, I get the job. No big surprise there. And it was like the worst job in the world, and which was great. So I was there about 18 months. And in that 18 months at that one hotel, I went through 7 general managers, 4 directors of sales, 4 food and beverage managers. And oh, by the way, the management company went bankrupt. And I was like, adulting sucks. Like, this is stupid. Like, I should have went to grad school or stayed in school or done something else because this is no fun at all. So I leave that hotel and go to another one, and this is really good. So they close in 6 months after I get there. I'm the corporate sales manager. I go, I haven't even been here long enough to screw this up. How in the heck can you guys already be closing? So the owners got in a fight with the city, and the owners just said, well, thanks for playing. So I said, all right, I'm going to give this one more chance. I have one more hotel I'm going to try, and then I'm going to be like, I'm out. I'm going to like go sell fax machines or whatever. So I walk in, so I get a job at this one hotel. It's an all-suite hotel, really nice upscale hotel, and I love it. And anyway, so I'm there for several years, and I meet one of my owners, David. And David Westpizer, he basically owns most of Oxford, Ohio, where Miami of Ohio is, right? Okay, good. I'm a big fan. Big fan of Joe or David, whatever, in Miami, that's fine. So David, I'm 24 years old at the time, and I say to David, I said, just tell me, like, how'd you get where you are? Like, what'd you do with your life? Like, because you're you and I'm me, and we're very different. So can you just like shed some light on it for me? And so David started to mentor me, and he was like my really first big mentor. And David taught me everything there is to know about hotel development. So I was 26 years old, and I did a pro forma and a feasibility study for a hotel that David wanted to put together in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And so I was traveling around with him, and I'm like a fish out of water, meeting with like all these different like possible investors and banks, and I'm learning all the ins and outs. And that's when I decided, okay, I remembered my very first managers, and I remembered my experience at that first horrible hotel, and I said, no way am I ever gonna be one of those guys, and no way am I putting up with this crap anymore. I'm gonna own a hotel. And I still to this day will own a hotel. It's still a dream I chase. But that was the thing that really tipped me. Like, I look back on my horrible managers that I had, and I had a lot of them. The hospitality industry is riddled with bad management. And I have to say that this hotel is the exception to the rule, because I had the greatest managers and team I've ever worked with in my entire life right here. But it was bad. And so I knew that I had to make a change, and I had to do something. So I'm 29 years old now, and I'm living in Cincinnati still, and my best friend says, hey, I want you to read this book. So, well, I don't really read. Like, you want to go to the bar and have a drink? Like, I can do that. I'm pretty good at that, but I'm not really a good reader. He goes, no, I want you to read this book. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All right, so I get a copy of this book, and I read this thing in like 2 days, which for me is like lightning, because I'm not a fast reader, and I don't read that much, whatever. At the time, I didn't. So I read this book, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like everything that I've ever wanted and learned about. It's like all right here. And it wasn't even about like the book per se, like having a rich dad or having a poor dad. It was about some of the philosophies out of that book. Most of us, and I was guilty of this for most of my life, I worked to make money. Rich people had their money work for them. Understanding what like a true liability versus an asset really is and how that affects you. And just understanding some of these really big themes, it really resonated with me. And to this day, it just really, really, really is the book that catapulted my entire entrepreneurial spirit. But I need to back up because when I was in high school, I had a pretty kick-ass landscaping company called Eagle Landscaping. And one day, my buddy's dad comes down and pulled half of the equipment back into his car. Apparently, we didn't have permission to use some of that. Should have probably got that permission ahead of time. That was really helpful. There was also another Eagle Landscaping company down the road, like in like the same city in Cleveland. But I was like, who is gonna sue a high school kid? Well, they did. They had no problem. There was no issue at all whatsoever. They really didn't care. That's really good that you're 16 years old and you just got your license, but this is our company. I'm like, no. This is a big city. We have plenty of space for all of us. No, that's not really how it works. Okay, got it. Noted. So that was kind of a fail, if you will. I was really surprised when I sold Cutco knives when I was in college. That career really didn't take off like I really wanted it to. Same with I sold high-end fountain pens when I was in college as well. And again, really surprised when that company went out of business. So it was okay though. I had one last ditch effort and I was like, this is the money spot right here. I'm gonna sell my parents' friends long distance service. That did not go over well either. My parents are still upset with me to this day. I spent $168 on this network marketing long distance service, whatever the hell that is. I don't even know what it is anymore. That's how long ago it was. So I look at some of these things that I failed on, and it's funny. I wrote down this quote about Thomas Edison because he goes, I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And I kind of feel like that's what I did. I didn't really fail at any of these other jobs. I just found all the stuff that I really should not have been doing with my life. And it was good, really good. Okay, so anyway, I want to go back to the book though, because I had a chance to meet Sharon Lechter, who is the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And turns out Sharon is one of my mentors. And actually today's her birthday, so I wish Sharon a happy birthday. And she's now a good friend of mine. And matter of fact, I'm going to be heading out to her ranch in Arizona later this year, see her and her husband and do like a little retreat. But it's really, really cool. And I remember meeting her and it was like this starstruck thing, right? Like if you meet George Clooney or Brad Pitt or whoever your person is. George Clooney has great hair, so I always go to him. And I was so just enthralled with Sharon. And I told her, I remember grabbing her hand and just telling her, you had such a profound impact on my life. You changed my life. This book that you wrote is the most impactful thing that's ever happened to me. And it was really, really cool. I just got that experience to have that just a couple years ago. So I was really kind of failing myself, my hopes and my dreams. Melissa and I were talking last night. She goes, well, sometimes, Joe, not making a choice is a choice. And I was like, I hate when you're right. And she's always right. And that's what I've learned. And so I was making a lot of non-choices because I was like, I want to be like an entrepreneur. I want to own my own company. I want to do all these things. But at the same time, I was like, but I have this really cool job and I have these great hotel benefits and it only cost me $39 to stay overnight anymore, which by the way is probably one of the only bad things about leaving the hotel industry is having to pay full price for hotel rooms again. It is expensive and I'm not prepared for that. But when I want to fast forward just a little bit, July 2013. So this is probably at the time, it was by far the biggest failure that ever happened to me. I was a regional sales director for a gigantic hotel company, Intercontinental Hotels Group. And I had 34 hotels in 4 states that I consulted with. So I was on 4 planes a week, having awesome dinners, staying in great places, just really living the jet-setting life and just having a blast doing it, right? Has anyone ever told you, hey, your job is really cool. I would love to be doing what you're doing. I really want your job. Okay, some people really mean that. They really want your job, and they're going to take it. So I found myself through a great series of horrendous decisions in my life, and through learning about corporate politics, I was fired, which is really fun to go home and tell your then wife and 1-year-old and 4-year-old kid, Daddy screwed up because he's an idiot, and we have no income right now. So that was great. So I learned really quickly, holy heck, what am I going to do? How am I going to find business? I have 2 little kids. I had a wife who at the time I still liked, and I was like, I got to figure out what to do. I got to figure something out. So thank God I had like a really good network of hoteliers. So 10 days later, I have dinner with 2 of the owners from this hotel, and we were able to sign a contract, and here I am, back at work, back in my comfort zone, back of that 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 in the hotel industry job and life, and kind of doing my thing. So how does losing my job tie into what I'm doing now and my career? Well, it's really simple. Losing my job in July of 2013 was single-handedly one of the worst days of my life. It was bad. And I'll never forget that I had somehow, by the strength of God, I had like this resiliency. And I just said, you know what? I'm never going to be in this position again. I'm done. I'll go out and get another job, but it's time for me to start figuring out something else, because I'm tired of other people pulling the strings on whether or not I have an income. So my wife and I at the time, my then wife, right, we're watching a lot of HGTV. Everyone asks me all the time, Joe, how'd you get started in the home inspection? I'm like, well, it's quite the coming of age tale. We're watching HGTV at home on the couch. Very, very lovey-dovey marriage. It's great. And there's this guy, Mike Holmes, who has a show called Homes on Homes. And I'm watching this guy and I'm going, oh, I could totally do this. This is right up my alley. Like, I got this. I mean, I'm handy-ish. I know a little about homes. Like, I can figure this out, right? So I decide, I go, you know what? I'm gonna start a home inspection company. So I start looking into it. As I start looking into it, I'm reading the paper back when papers were a thing, and Diane Pisani, who's sitting here today, has this little ad about, hey, do you ever want to know about Home Watch? I'm doing a little info session if you want to come by. So I call up Diane. I'm like, hey, do you still have room for me? I know it's in like a few days. She goes, yeah, come on in. So I go to Diane's session, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is my calling. I got it. Home inspection and home watch. I'm launching it. This is great. So I start to go through all the schooling for a home inspector, which, by the way, is pretty intense. It's 120 hours of online work, and then I did 40 hours up in Tampa at a weekend lab and all this stuff, and you got to take all these tests and all this stuff. And I go, all right, I'm going to also launch my home watch company. This makes a whole lot of sense. They're really synergistic. So I put a vote up to the family, and I say, okay, who wants to name the new company? I got a $25 Starbucks gift card for you. Pretty enticing, I know. Lots of people jumped at that opportunity. I had 3 people respond back to me in my family. That was good. And the name that came about was Inspector Gadget Homes. I'm like, yes, I'm in. Now, I'm going to tell you more about that on that name later, but over the course of the next year or so, I really slowly start to get my credentials and get all my training and take my tests. And, I'm still working 60 plus hours a week here at this hotel. And, I've got like 2 kids and all these things are happening in my life, but I'm really, really excited that I'm finally kind of working towards something. And people never understood. They're like, Joe, you have this really cushy, good job. You're making really good bucks, got a couple good bennies. What are you doing? Well, in a few years, they were going to find out why I was trying to build my own little empire. So what happens in 2016? I go through a divorce. And I'm like, okay, this wasn't part of the plan. I'm living in one of my former hotels, which that's a humbling experience, living in one of your former hotels that has a bar. Not good. Don't recommend. 0 out of 5 stars on Yelp. Not good at all. I put my company on hold. I really just didn't care about business or anything. I was just like, anyone that's been through a life-changing event like that, like whether it's a divorce or whatever it is, it just kind of like puts you in a rut, and it kind of like takes the wind out of your sails, and you're just kind of like, screw life. I'm going to try to figure out what the hell I'm doing with the rest of my life. And that's kind of what I did. I remember I found like this, really bad, like 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in North Naples. And so I tell the kids, I'm like, oh, we're going to be here for 1 year. It's going to be fine. That was 5 years later. It's fine. And, but I remember like just, there were so many times, like I I built like this really nice home in Naples, like from the ground up, back when you could afford to live in Southwest Florida, right? And it was like a really good deal. And I was like so excited about this home. And then I go from that to like this old 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo. And I'm like, well, this is pretty humbling. And so money is crazy tight, right? So like we get divorced in the middle of high season. I said to my then ex-wife, I go, we can't even get divorced right. Like we couldn't get divorced in like August when it's like $14 to stay at a hotel. We have to do it in high season where it's like $300 a night that I'm paying, by the way. So money was really tight. I had thrown out, tens of thousands of dollars to start my inspection company. And I just remember many, many, many nights my kids would be asleep and I would like just sit in their room and I would just cry, just profusely cry, going, oh my God, I'm like the worst dad. I'm such a failure. I can't believe I'm putting my kids through this. It was a really, really, really low point in my life. I remember on multiple occasions, ice cube soup was the specialty of the night. And I went through those trials and tribulations like you hear about with a lot of different entrepreneurs, and it happened. But then I like started watching this, I don't know if anyone remembers a social media app called Periscope. Anyone remember that? So I happened to go through Periscope, and those of you that don't know about it, really quick, it was basically, it's an all video thing from all over the country. You could watch people and it's like live videos, and there was trainings and different stuff like that on there. So I found this guy, Sean Thomas, and I saw Sean and I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, but he's got a really attractive girlfriend. He drinks good wine. He's got cool cars, and he talks about entrepreneurship. All right, I'm in. So he like takes questions from people during this thing, and he just like roasts them, just destroys them. And I go, I got to tune in just because I don't know what he's going to say next. This is fantastic. I feel so much better about my life because that was a really stupid question that person asked. So I'm doing okay. So next thing you know, a couple months after I start following Sean, he moves over to Instagram. So I follow him on Instagram and he goes, hey, I'm launching this mentorship group and it's for startup entrepreneurs. And I'm offering a deal for $249 for this lifetime membership. And I'm going, all right, I spend that in about 2.5 nights at the bar. I can totally, like, what the hell's another $250? I got it. I'm all in. So I go in, and little did I know it was going to be the best decision I ever made in my life. It was exactly the tribe I was looking for. It was exactly the people I was looking for. I got involved. I asked questions. I went to events. I just really was like renewed and energized. And I was like, okay, time to get my head out of my butt. Time to really start thinking about being an entrepreneur, time to really start doing things again. And Sean was a big credit of how that happened. So I finally come out of this rut. I come home from work one night, I get my mail, and there's like a really thick envelope. Now, if you remember, like when you went to college or your kids went to college and got a thick envelope, it was really good news. Like, oh, I think I just got accepted. When you're an adult, it's not good news when you get a thick envelope in the mail, especially when it's from a law firm in New York City. You're like, oh God, this can't go well. So sure enough, I get a cease and desist from a company called DHX Media, which owns the rights to Inspector Gadget Homes. I go, oh God, this is it. I'm going to prison. This is how it ends for me. I'm not going to do well in jail. I have a very delicate system. I bruise like a peach. This is not like anyone that knows me knows I am I want to go out for like a nice meal and maybe like a couple extra blankets on bed. Like they're not going to do that for me, right? So I call up my attorney the next morning, like first thing. And I say, Mark, so we have a little bit of an issue. He goes, Joe, don't worry. Just the big guy against the little guy. You did nothing wrong, nothing to worry about. You're totally fine. Like, we can totally beat this. I say, oh, this is great. He goes, it's going to take 6 months and $75,000. I said, I think your rebranding sounds fantastic, Mark. That's a great idea. I don't think at the time I had $75, let alone $75,000. So I meet with my branding team, and big shout out to Brian McCartney and Kelly, and they rebranded me as Joe the Home Pro, which was awesome, and I still to this day just love what they did. So here I am now, Joe the Home Pro, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ingrained in the community. I got some people on my side, like I'm ready to launch this company. We're launched, we're rolling. But then it was like, well, hold on a minute. My role here at the hotel was increasing. So I was getting pulled into a lot more owner and investor meetings, and I was getting pulled into like this rebranding campaign that they're in right now. And I was like taking on a whole different department. I was overseeing the food and beverage department for a little bit at one point. I had my sales and catering team. And so here I am. I have 15 home watch clients. Irma happens. That was fun, said no one ever. Although we look back on what we just went through and it's like, oh, I would give anything for another Irma, right? So I have 15 clients. I'm trying to get to their homes to make sure they're okay. I'm here at the hotel working 60 to 70 hours a week. I have a home inspection company. I'm trying to do 10 or 15 inspections for a month. And P.S., I'm trying to be like a halfway decent dad. And so I was burnt out. I was done. And so I go to an AO event, Accelerators Organization event. I go there in 2018, and I pull aside Peter Kazadoy, who is one of my mentors at the time, and I say, Peter, we got to talk. And so we start chatting, and I say, hey, things aren't good. I tell him the whole story, and he goes, man, I can see it in your eyes. He goes, you're done. I'm like, I'm done. Like, all I've done is create all these jobs for myself. Like, if I walk away, like right now I'm in Nashville, and my company is making $0. I go, all I've done is create jobs for myself. I don't have a company. He goes, listen, I can help you. We can fix this. We're going to do it. But you got to stay with me. Book a call with me. Let's talk next week. We'll start coaching and blah, blah, blah. So Peter and I start coaching. We talk about how we're going to scale. And in the processes, we have like these crazy in-depth conversations, not just about business, but just like life. Like, what do you want out of life? What kind of lifestyle do you want? What do you want for your kids? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are this? What are that? And we go through this entire thing, and we come up with this idea to scale my home watch company at the time. And we're going to try to help out veterans and first responders and other home inspectors. And that's when we came up with this idea for Liberty Home Watch Institute. Now, if anyone is looking to start anything and then let that money, pour thousands of dollars into it and let it sit and just kind of let it screw yourself, let me know. Because I have the quickest way to bankruptcy you'll ever figure out in your life. I am the king of like starting stuff and I'm going, no, I think this is going to work. I think we can do this. And I'm like, okay, we'll hold on to that for another 2 years. So anyways, I've mentioned the Accelerators organization a couple times, very much on purpose, just because they've had such a big impact in my life. And shameless plug, if anyone is looking, anyone's an entrepreneur, it's a startup that's looking for mentorship from 27 different people who have all been there and done it before, come find me afterwards. I'll be happy to tell you more about it. So let me get to March 2020, and the world stops. COVID happens, right? So not a whole lot of people are traveling to a hotel, by the way, and you can't be the highest paid person on payroll and run 15% occupancy with no events. And I go to Nashville in June of that year. There's 40 of us there for summer social. And yes, we all took COVID tests because someone asked me about that recently. Did you take a COVID test? Yes, we did. Don't worry. Everyone was fine. So I'm there and I'm talking to my friend, one of my best friends, Heather. Some of you may know Heather because I've shared some social media posts about her. Heather was going through stage 4 breast cancer at the time. And at the same time, simultaneously, she grew her mobile pet grooming business in Houston, Texas to $1.2 million. So anytime someone's like, I just don't think I can do it, I'm way too busy, I'm like, you want to talk to Heather? Because I think she might give you some perspective on what it means to really go all out and overcome odds. But I'm talking to her and I said, Heather, I think it's time. I think it's time I need to get serious. Like, I need to leave the hotel. I think I really need to jump into this thing and see what it can do. She goes, well, it's about damn time, Joe. We've been waiting for a while for you to say that. So, okay, well, I'm finally here. So later that evening, unbeknownst to me, they had the very first annual Accelerators Organization MVP award, and I won the award. And I look at Heather and I go, okay, I get it. I'll be there. It's fine. I got it. So Monday, June the 15th, I fly back to Naples. And I have the idea. I go, all right, in the next like 30 to 60 days, I'm going to go ahead and put my resignation in at the hotel here, and I'm going to start doing this full time. So Tuesday, the next day I come into work. It's a day like any other. 3 o'clock, I get a text message from my boss going, hey, I need you to meet me in this room. And I walk in the room, it's him and HR. And I go, okay, I've been gone. What could I'm like, I've been gone. What could I have possibly done to get in trouble? And no one fires anybody on a Tuesday. We all know that, right? So he goes, listen, COVID, things aren't good at the hotel. Gives me a letter. You're getting furloughed. I was like, okay, sounds good. Thanks. He goes, I'm sorry, what? I go, no, we're good. Got it. Thanks. I sign here, Nate here. He goes, no, I really need you to read this letter. I was like, no, you don't understand. I've already read it. I'm good. Like, I don't need to read it. I'm out of here. Can I say bye to my team? Cool. So we meet right over here in the corner of this very room. And I meet the team and I say, hey, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Shake hands with everybody. Say bye to my boss. Say, hey, by the way, I'm probably not going to be coming back. I get that, but Ani, she'd be perfect for your director. So elevate her, promote her. She's great. She's ready for it. Thanks for everything. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye. Boom, out the door. I text the realtor. I'm supposed to have an inspection at 5:30. I go, I'll see you at 4 o'clock. He goes, what? I'm going to meet me at 4 o'clock. We're ready to go. Boom, and I'm off to the races. Here it is. This is my new life. JD reaches out to me. He goes, hey, in 2 days, we got this Grow Business Network event over at Mission Barbecue. You got to come to it. I was like, huh? Okay. I'm like, this is my new life now. So I go to John C., the owner of Grow Business Network, who's here today. Many of you know him. But I go to John's event, and I'm like scared to death. I'm looking around this room going, oh my God, this is my new life. Like, how do I do this now? Like, I have a 6-figure job that I just lost. Great benefits, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm like a full-fledged entrepreneur, but I'm all in. And this was the point that I was like, okay, the hotel was going to give me 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And they said, we'll let you know what's going to happen. And so my whole goal was to really make sure that I busted my butt so that if they invited me back, I could say no, thank you. And that's exactly what I did. And so no one was really going to be able to guess that the real estate market was going to blow up like it did. But it was proof that I made the right decision. It was that sign, that calling that said, okay, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. And I knew I was in the right place at the right time. And I knew this is what I was meant for. I was not meant to make other people millions of dollars over the last 20 years, which is literally what I did without me making millions of dollars. So I knew that this was the right time to jump and this was the right thing to me. So I adopted our Accelerators organization motto, which is most won't, I will. It's a motto that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. It's a motto I've instilled in my kids, and it's a motto that I encourage each of you to adopt today. That motto is, if you do the things that other people are not willing to do or don't know how to do, that is what will make you successful. And so that's what I did. I worked 7 days a week. I did 4 to 5 inspections a day. I worked 365 days a year. I did an inspection, matter of fact, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day. I dropped my kids off, gobble, gobble, love you, mean it, boom, gotta go. Went up to Fort Myers at 4 o'clock and I'm doing an inspection on Thanksgiving Day because I knew that no one else was willing to do the things that I was willing to do. No one's gonna out-hustle me. No one's gonna overtake anything that I do. And that is exactly what I did. So I really had a giant chip on my shoulder and I wanted to prove everyone wrong. And I think that was a big driving factor into what I did. They say to save the best for last, and holy cow, do I have a doozy of my biggest failure in my entire life. So a couple years ago, I was in a relationship for pretty much like the first time since my divorce. This before Melissa, thank God. Just so everyone, because everyone's like trying to do the math in their head, like he thought he was with. No, before Melissa. So it was like one of those like weird, like quick romances too, right? Like 3 weeks in, she's like, I love you. I'm like, sure, I love you too. This is great. And then like 2 months later, like, we should get married. We should move in. Like, it was great. Kind of like the Cutco knives and the high-end fountain pens. Hard to believe that didn't work out for me. I really thought we were on the straight and narrow on that one. So the rug gets pulled out from me underneath me 6 months later, and I just go into like this crazy tailspin, unlike anything I've ever been in before. And it was the worst bout of mental health that I've ever had. And I'm very open, and I share very openly about my mental health challenges I've had over the years, but this was by far the worst thing in the world. So what do I do? Well, I'm like immediately like, okay, if I can finish every inspection by 2 o'clock, I could be at the bar at 3, and I'll have 9 hours that I can go and just have fun and forget about life. Except not a foolproof way of dealing with things, because alcohol is a depressant, and then that just makes you more sad and more bad things happen. So sure enough, I go through this crazy time. I'm sending out like crazy text messages. I'm just in a really bad spot in my life. Like I'm a horrible father at this point. It was like the kids come over every Tuesday and every other weekend. I'm like, there's nuggets, figure it out. Like I just wanted nothing to do with life. I hated life. I couldn't believe that I was going through this right now. And so my 2 best friends called my brother in Columbus and they said, hey, Rob, you need to get down here. Joe is not good. We're really worried about him. And my brother's like, okay, I'll be there Friday. And they go, we don't know if that's going to be enough time. Like, that's how bad I was. And so you go through these like moments of your life, and I go through like these emotions that I had and the feelings and all this stuff. And I was like, 1 minute you think you're good, and then the next minute you're not. And it was like this crazy up and down. But what's really nuts is that somehow I'm still able to like run a successful company. I'm not missing any appointments. I'm showing up on time. Clients are happy. Revenues are through the roof. I'm like, I totally have this under control. I can like, be Superman, and I can be a train wreck from 3 o'clock until midnight and then totally be fine from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Well, eventually that caught up to me. And I'll never, ever forget. So it was a Thursday night. I think it was like August 5th or something like that, somewhere around there. And I went out like I did any other night, and I got pretty blacked out because I was like really good at that. And I go home that night, and I guess I was just having like a really, really bad night, worse than normal, and send out some pretty crazy texts. Now, normally when I would send out something nuts, I would normally have somebody come and rip me out of my condo at like 2 o'clock in the morning, or they would come and stay with me or something like that, but not this time. The next thing I know, there's like a crazy knock on the door and doorbell's ringing. And I go, what the heck's going on? Somehow I woke up, which I still don't know how. And I go to the door, and there's 2 Collier County Sheriff's deputies in front of me. And I look at them in the eye, and I go, this can't be good. And they go, I go, everything okay? They're like, yeah, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm a bit drunk still, but I'm fine. I didn't drive. I always Uber. You can check the car, and you can check my Uber log. They're like, no, that's not why we're here. Like, can you come outside for a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. I'm like, all right. So they start asking me questions. They're on the phone. They're on their walkie-talkies, all this stuff. Next thing they're like, hey, can you just turn around for 1 second? I was like, sure, no problem. And I get put in handcuffs. Okay, I'm a guy that's never been put like in handcuffs in my life. I've never been in trouble in my life. And I go, listen, guys, these silver cuffs really don't go with my outfit. Do you have something else that might match? Humor was not the right. See what happens? Did you do that? Okay. I guess that's karma. I don't know. So anyway, so humor is like not the right thing to say at a time like that. So the cops are saying, oh, we're just doing a wellness check and all this stuff. I said, okay, that sounds good. And there's something very sobering when you get put in handcuffs. And what's even worse is when you have to call your ex-wife in handcuffs when you're at your kitchen table and you say, I'm probably not going to make it to Maddie's Meet the Teacher. Something has come up. So that was great. That was a great epic fail on my part. So I get hauled down to the David Lawrence Center. I'm like in tears. I'm like freaking out. I have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm getting Baker acted. And I go, you've got to be kidding me right now. I'm like, sir, I just got really drunk. I went through a really bad breakup. Everything's fine. If we could just spin around and go home. I just need a coffee, maybe a muffin. That would be great. And I'll be fine. That's not how it works. So I go to David Lawrence Center, like these 2 giant aides come out, right? And they're like, hey, how's he doing? And the guy's like, oh, he's more scared than anything. So I go in and they're like, oh, you got a string on your shorts. Can't have strings on your shorts. You got to put on these pretty kick-ass, awesome gray sweatpants, courtesy of DLC. I was like, well, gray's not really my color, but okay, we'll go with it. My hair's all disheveled. I haven't brushed my teeth. Like I'm just an absolute train wreck. And so you get put inside like this room. It's almost like a prison cell. You have like this hard rubber kind of bed, and there's this TV. And on this TV was SpongeBob SquarePants. And I was like, if no one has mental health issues going in, they will. Because who in the hell wants to listen to SpongeBob SquarePants for 2 hours? Like, this is horrendous. This is torture. So I'm in there for like an hour. And next thing you know, there's like sirens going off and bells and whistles. And they're bringing somebody else in, except he didn't come as willing as I did, apparently. So I see people, they're on either side of him. This guy's buck naked. I'm like, what is going on right now? And it was at that moment that I realized that there is a real problem in society with men's mental health. And it was something that really kind of came to light. So I'm there for a couple of days. My mom and my 2 best friends come to visit me, which is really humbling to see your mom and your 2 best friends during visiting hours at DLC, David Lawrence Center. And so got in there on Friday. The only good thing is not many people book inspections on Fridays or Saturdays, so I didn't miss that much business, which was nice because you don't have a phone, so you have to like call like, you know, people from like some sort of like pay phone, but you don't really pay for it. So anyway, so my mom comes to visit, and sure enough, it's on Sunday, and the doctor happens to be in. And the doctor goes, "Hey, is that Joe's mom?" And they're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, have him come in." I'm like, "All right, cool." So we get him, we're talking to the doc. He goes, "All right, listen, I think you're okay. I think you're just, you know, you got a bad broken heart, and I think you need to pull your head out of your ass." And I go, "Well, probably. It's a good idea." And he goes, "So here's what I'm going to do. If you go home with your mom and stay there for the next 2 days, I'll let you go now." I go, "You know what? I'm good right here. Let's just go ahead and stay right here. I think I'm fine." My mom had no sense of humor with that joke, by the way. That is a true story. She was not very happy with me, but little did I know that anyway, I did go and I got better. And what happened? Well, luckily, like 10 days later, my now lead home inspector came down to shadow me, and he has no idea that I just got like put in the hospital for 3 days and Baker acted, right? So that happened. I go to like a board of directors retreat for an organization I'm on, and they have no idea what just happened 2 weeks prior. I go see my friends in Cincinnati, and I go to Nashville because Nashville's like that's like my spot. I can go see Sean, and I can go see some of my friends there, and everything's okay. And that's what happened. And I kind of pulled myself out. And then I met Melissa. And Melissa was a big reason that I was able to get my head out of my ass, because she really showed me what it really means to be in a true, loving, caring, honest, non-cheating like relationship. And it was really cool. So thanks, Melissa, for that. You're pretty good. You did your sentence. But, you know, like any times in our lives, I always feel like every time we have a setback, it brings us to a comeback, right? So like you get set back, but holy cow, the comeback's going to be that much greater. And man, that's exactly what I did, because what was really sad to me was while I was thinking about like all this wasted time spent, and like, I mean, even at one point, like I went to an AA meeting and then I went out and got drunk at 2 different bars. Like, who does that? My best friend's like, "You're an embarrassment." And I go, "Well, you're an asshole." Like, whatever, right? So I was like, "All right, I'm leaving. I'm out of here." He wasn't wrong though, right? I mean, I went through like these crazy ups and downs, but I feel like somehow I was able to pull through. And I think somehow because I still knew, I stopped going to church for like 6 months. I probably invented some curse words, and I'm still going to have to say I'm sorry to God for it when I go to the pearly gates. But I started to go back to church. I started to be in this great relationship. I started to listen to people more. I started to just kind of come around and be like, what am I trying to do? What are my goals? What's important to me? And that's really what I focused on. And, you know, someone told me years ago that the good times don't last, but neither do the bad. And I think for me, it was all about keeping my eye on the prize. I had massive failures with my business, with stopping and starting. I had massive failures of personal things that got in the way. I had massive failure of not knowing what I don't know and costing me thousands of dollars. I'll tell you that I probably dumped 20 grand into my home inspection company and another 15 into my home watch business. Because why? Because Diane told me not to sign the contract for 4 years for a marketing company, but she was really cute and I was single. And I was like, this seems like the right marketing thing to do. It wasn't. Diane was right then and she's right now, right? I did all these things, but it all led me to the journey. And in the journey, which I found is that the journey is really the lesson. And the one thing I will say is that, you know, there were people around me that I was really, really grateful for. People that were in my inner circle that I didn't realize were in my inner circle, because I had people that were helping me on business. Bill Dobbin sitting here. Bill's been one of my staunchest supporters, one of my biggest allies and friends, always willing to help me out with mentorship and guidance. JD, by inviting me to the Grow Business Network and introducing me to John C. I'll never forget when I was going through my really bad time, John sat there with me. There was a room of 80 people at one of our regional lunches. And John just sat there with me. And he's like, "Man, what do you need? What can I do? You want to come over for dinner? You want to come to church?" Just knowing that he was there, like I will never forget what John did for me and what he means to me. And I'll never forget the hundreds of people that all just propped me up. They didn't know why. They just knew I needed propped up. And it was because of those same people that I even had the courage to start my own company. It's those same people that give me the ability each and every day to go out and to serve others. And I'm disappointed that I let my personal demons stop me from serving as many people as I wanted to. But we're making up for it now. And I think for me, it's all about how can we be a steward in the community? Our fourth pillar in our company is community centric. And I think I'll just say this. I know that God has something bigger and better in store for me. There's no question about that. I know it's starting to manifest itself. I now have a team of people. I have my administrative assistant here, Molly. I have my lead inspector, another home inspector. We're adding people. We're growing revenues. We're able to start to give back to the community. And that's what it's for. And I think that was really my purpose. And even though I went through all those failures and all those lessons, that's why I'm here. And I think that, I'm just getting started. But at the end of the day, I am a failure survivor. And I encourage all of you to take your failures and laugh at them, because they're all meant to bring you on a specific journey that got you where you are today. If I can do anything to help any of you, please let me know. But thank you very much for listening.